A man sits in the shadow of a blackened mountain. His hands are coated in gold dust and sweat, would not trip over the table of bread in the dark. Or perhaps they see it as just a cultural symbol. An icon that shows up, shattered the centralized design, and handed the fire to the very people the empire was trying to destroy. For over 1,000 years, the math remained exactly the same. One tabernacle, one temple, one heavy golden tree. If you wanted to stand near the watcher, if you wanted to smell the burning olive oil and see the gold glowing in the dark, you had to travel to Jerusalem. You had to climb the massive stone steps of Mount Zion. And even then, unless you were a priest born into the specific bloodline of Aaron, you were stopped by a thick woven curtain. The light was highly localized, geographically restricted, and heavily guarded by a religious elite who decided who belonged and who did not. Then, a carpenter from Nazareth walks into the timeline and completely shatters the architecture. When Jesus looks at a crowd of illiterate fishermen and exhausted laborers and says, "You are the light of the world," he is doing something deeply subversive to the ancient religious system. He is taking the sacred, localized identity of the temple and distributing it to the margins of the Roman Empire. He is taking the Luchnia, the vigilant golden watcher, out from behind the heavy curtain and handing it to people with calloused hands and dirt on their sandals, in holiday displays or on the Arch of Titus in Rome. And it does function as a light. The menorah is not a geographical destination you visit. It is a scattered reality you carry. Throughout the New Testament, you watch this multiplication happen in real time. The single golden shaft splits into dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of burning branches. But remember the unbending rule of the ancient sanctuary. The light is not a self-sustaining magic trick. The fire requires fuel, and the fuel requires a crushing only now. It is not olives being beaten in a clay jar. It is human lives under the crushing weight of the Roman machine. As the early Christians are dragged out of their homes, stripped of their property, and scattered across the Mediterranean world, they do not leave the presence of God behind in Jerusalem. They become the presence of God in Antioch, in Corinth, in Ephesus, and in Rome. The temple is no longer a building of cold limestone on a hill. It is a living, breathing network of outcasts, standing guard in the darkest, most brutal cities of the ancient world. They become the almond branches, waking up in the dead of winter. But carrying the fire makes you a target. By the end of the 1st century, the empire has had enough of this decentralized light. The Emperor Domitian launches a brutal, systematic campaign to snuff out the branches one by one. Believers are thrown into arenas. Leaders are executed. But if you look closer at the specific botanical details God commands, at the words the prophets use when they see it in visions, the political pressure is suffocating. And the remaining, terrified communities are wondering if the dark is finally going to win. And then, on a rocky penal colony in the Aegean Sea, an exiled old man hears a voice behind him like a trumpet. He turns around, and the golden tree has returned. But it looks nothing like it did in the wilderness. The Aegean Sea violently slams against the jagged black rocks of Patmos. The wind is freezing. Salt spray stings the skin of an old man exiled to a Roman quarry. It is the Lord's day. John is alone. The empire has tried to boil him alive. And when that failed, they threw him on this island to die in the dark. Then, a voice shatters the silence. It sounds like a war trumpet. It rattles the stones. John turns around. He expects to see a Roman guard. He expects to see an executioner. He sees fire. He sees gold. But he does not see the singular, solid 75-pound tree from the wilderness. The architecture has changed. He sees 7 completely separate golden lampstands, the Luchnia, and standing in the middle of the gold is a man. At the terrifying image John encounters in the opening chapter of Revelation, you start to see something the functional reading completely misses. Look at the clothing described in Revelation chapter 1. A robe reaching down to his feet, a heavy golden sash wrapped high around his chest. This is the uniform of the ancient sanctuary. This is the garment of Aaron. The man's hair is white as snow. His eyes burn like a furnace. His feet glow like bronze firing in a kiln. His voice roars like crashing waves. He is walking among the 7 lampstands. He is checking the oil. He is trimming the charred wicks. He is scraping away the black ash of persecution and fatigue. This is not a distant emperor demanding tribute from broken subjects. This is the high priest walking the night shift. In the wilderness tabernacle, Aaron had to walk into a pitch-black room twice a day to keep a single tree burning. Now, the true high priest is walking among 7 scattered trees, planted in the darkest cities of Asia Minor: Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, Laodicea. The lamps are the churches. The watcher has been multiplied, and the high priest is actively keeping them alive under the crushing weight of Rome. He knows their tribulation. He knows their poverty. He knows where they dwell, even right where Satan's throne is. The Roman Empire is trying to snuff out the light. The lampstand is not a light fixture. It is a living watcher. We are a species that fears the dark. The emperors are spilling blood. The believers are utterly exhausted. But the watcher is awake. He is walking the floor. He is tending the flame. But tending a flame requires cutting away the dead wick. And when the high priest steps up to the very first lampstand in Ephesus, he issues a warning that should terrify any modern believer who assumes their light is permanently guaranteed. A charred piece of flax produces nothing but cold ash and bitter smoke in the back of your throat. When the high priest walks the night shift, he does not tolerate a dead wick. Jesus dictates a letter to the community in Ephesus, a group of believers who have perfectly defended their theology, endured massive political pressure, and built an impenetrable fortress of correct doctrine. They have the endurance of a stone wall. And yet, standing in the middle of their golden tree, the risen Christ tells them he is holding the bronze wick trimmers. He says, "Remember therefore from where you have fallen, repent, and do the works you did at first. If not, I will come to you and remove your lampstand from its place." The removal of the lampstand is not a violent eviction from the kingdom of heaven. It is the tragic loss of your earthly function. If you have ever watched a massive, historically rich church, we are terrified of the moments when we cannot see what is coming. When the room goes pitch black and we lose our bearings, suddenly go completely cold. You have seen this exact removal happen in real time. You can own the heavy limestone building on the corner of the city square. You can perfectly tune the acoustic instruments and fill the wooden pews with thousands of bodies every single weekend. You can have all the right answers to all the most complex theological debates. But if the self-emptying, sacrificial love that defined the early believers evaporates, the high priest takes the fire somewhere else. A community without love is just an unlit metal statue standing in a pitch-black room, completely useless to a world that is desperately trying to find its way in the dark. And this warning scales down from the massive institution directly into your own chest. If you are in a season where you are exhausted by constantly defending your religious boundaries, where you have mistaken theological precision for actual spiritual vitality, this text is a terrifying wake-up call. The golden tree was never designed to be a weapon to strike people with. It was designed to be a beacon to guide them home. You can memorize the entire biblical architecture, just like the Ephesians did. But the fire does not burn on mere information. It burns on the beaten oil of a surrendered, fiercely loving life. Yet, the detail that changes how you read this harsh Ephesian warning is the grace embedded right in the middle of the threat. God knows this. And his response was not to give humanity a floodlight to illuminate the entire future at once. Jesus does not immediately snuff out the fading flame. He demands repentance, asking them to remember the height from which they have fallen and return to the first works. He gives the smoking flax time to catch the spark again, proving that the watcher is not looking for an excuse to extinguish you. He is actively stepping into the ashes, desperately trying to keep you ablaze. But that Ephesian warning is only a shadow of the ultimate promise, hiding at the very end of John's scroll. The wind howls across the Aegean Sea. the old man lowers his head on the jagged rocks of Patmos. He watches the high priest move among the 7 golden trees, the fire blazing against the suffocating dark. An artisan hammered 75 pounds of gold in a wasteland, and a watcher stood guard in the ancient dark. A prophet saw an almond branch wake up in the dead of winter and realized God was keeping watch over a collapsing world. A priest stepped into a pitch-black tent to pour the beaten oil, and the golden tree kept the shadows at bay. A builder stood in a ruined city, looking at infinite olive branches, and learned the fire would survive the rubble. His response was to plant a burning tree in the dark. The real question is why he chose this exact design. Why these specific branches? A savior looked at a crowd of exhausted outcasts on a hillside and decentralized the sacred light to the margins of the empire. A scattered people carried that flame into the brutal arenas of Rome and became the burning branches God planted in the dark. And an exiled man saw the risen Christ walking among 7 golden stands and knew the high priest was still tending the fire. Same tree, same fire. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the beaten oil. Not the massive, unyielding gold. Not the terrifying voice that sounds like crashing waves. The oil. The fact that the flame in the wilderness required the crushing of a bitter fruit in a heavy clay jar, batch by batch, by ordinary human hands. The light was never a magic trick. It was a partnership born out of bruising. If you are in a season where the pressure feels entirely suffocating, where the darkness is thick and the morning feels impossibly far away, you need to remember the architecture of the ancient sanctuary. Your crushing is not a random punishment. It is the fuel for your vigilance. The empire wants to break you. But the high priest knows how to take the oil of your deepest bruising and use it to keep a room lit. He is not standing far off, ignoring the heavy weight pressing down on your chest. He is walking the floor. He is tending the flame. And the answer changes how you read every dark chapter in the Bible, including the one you might be living in right now. He is guarding the branches that feel completely burned out. And may the God who has never once abandoned the night shift walk with you through your darkest hours and keep your flame burning until the morning finally breaks. To feel the weight of this object, you have to look at what Bezalel is actually hammering out of the gold. You have to look. The desert wind is blowing, carrying the faint scent of sulfur from the summit above him. He holds a heavy hammer, at the blossoms taking shape under his tools. Because God did not tell him to make an oak. He did not tell him to make a cedar. The blueprint demands almonds. Read through the architectural instructions in Exodus chapter 25, and you will find an almost obsessive level of botanical detail. The text specifies that each of the 6 branches extending from the central shaft must feature 3 cups shaped exactly like almond blossoms, complete with a calyx and a flower. The artisan is not just making a generic metal pole to elevate a wick. He is carving the sharp ridges of unopened buds and the gently flared petals of a tree in full bloom, hammering them permanently into the gold. The question is, why this specific tree? In the ancient Near Eastern landscape, the almond tree behaves completely differently than the rest of the forest. It is the first tree to wake up from the dead of winter, while the surrounding landscape is barren, while the ground is still hard, and the air is violently cold. The almond tree suddenly explodes into white and pink blossoms, usually in late January or early February. It blooms while everything else is still asleep. And in the ancient Hebrew mind, that biological reality is woven directly into the name of the tree itself. Centuries after Bezalel shapes this gold, a young prophet named Jeremiah is standing in a world that is rapidly falling apart. He strikes the metal, over and over. He is not assembling pieces. He is not welding branches together. The Babylonian army is gathering strength. The political landscape is collapsing. And in Jeremiah chapter 1, God asks the terrified young man a simple question. What do you see? Jeremiah looks at a wooden rod and answers, I see a branch of an almond tree. The word he uses for almond is the Hebrew shakt. It is a noun derived directly from the primary root verb shakad. And shakad means to watch, to wake, to be vigilant, to be vigilant. It carries the weight of a guard standing on a city wall. fighting off fatigue in the pitch black of the night shift to protect the people inside. God uses this exact linguistic connection to deliver the reassurance. He replies to Jeremiah, "You have seen well, for I am watching Shakit over my word to perform it." This changes the entire psychological weight of the heavy golden object sitting in the center of the tabernacle. The menorah is not a decorative relic. It is a vigilant sentinel. When the ancient Israelites imagine the holy place, they know what is waiting behind the thick curtains. They know that God is the almond tree. He is the one who wakes early. He is the one who stays up through the freezing winter. He is beating a single, solid block of pure gold, 75 pounds of cold, unyielding metal into the shape of a living thing, of human suffering, keeping watch when every other voice has gone completely silent. But this golden watcher does not burn in a vacuum. The flame does not sustain itself by magic. The light requires crushing. And the tree requires human hands. Aaron steps past the heavy woven curtains. The blazing desert sun vanishes instantly. The chaotic noise of 2 million wandering people disappears. The air inside the holy place is heavy. It is thick with the scent of burning frankincense and stale smoke. He walks forward in absolute darkness. He reaches out his hands. His fingers trace the cold, hammered ridges of the golden almond branches. He carries bronze tongs. He carries small fire pans. And he carries a heavy clay jar. This is his mandate. Every single morning, every single evening, he trims the charred flax wicks. He scrapes away the black soot. He pours the fresh oil. The fuel for this fire is incredibly specific. Leviticus 24 commands the people to bring pure oil from beaten olives, not crushed in a massive stone mill, not pressed for mass production. Beaten, pounded by hand, one small batch at a time, until the bitter fruit bleeds a clear, pure liquid. The light requires a bruising. The flame demands a crushing. Aaron pours the beaten oil into the 7 golden flower cups. He pulls up the fresh wicks. He strikes the spark. For 40 days, the mountain shook. The sky tore open with fire. The people below backed away in terror. The shadows retreat. The golden tree glows. He walks out. The sun goes down. The camp goes to sleep in the desert. But the golden tree burns through the night. Morning comes. Aaron wakes up. He walks back into the tent. He repeats the exact same process. He clears the ash. He trims the wick. He pours the oil. Day after day, year after year, century after century, the light is not a self-sustaining miracle. It is a daily partnership. God provides the fire. The people provide the crushing. The priest provides the tending. If Aaron ignores the mandate, the flame chokes on its own ash. If the people stop bringing the beaten olives, the room goes completely pitch black. The presence of God in the sanctuary is designed to require human participation to remain visible. The watcher stands guard, but the priest must keep the watcher fueled. This is the rhythm of the Old Testament. A single, centralized location. A single golden tree. A single high priest keeping the dark at bay. But then the timeline shifts. The tabernacle becomes a massive stone temple in Jerusalem. That temple is destroyed by Babylon. It is rebuilt by Ezra. It is expanded by Herod. And finally, it is occupied by Roman soldiers who march through the streets, worshipping an emperor they call a god. The world gets significantly darker. And in the 1st century, begging Moses to go up into the smoke alone. And when he finally comes back down, what he carries is not just a list of moral rules. Under the shadow of Roman execution stakes, the vocabulary fundamentally changes. The ancient watcher is about to be redefined. Matthew chapter 5, verse 15. Jesus sits on a dusty hillside in Galilee, the wind blowing off the water, looking at a crowd of fishermen, tax collectors, and exhausted mothers. They are not priests. They have never been allowed behind the heavy woven curtains of the holy place. And he says, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. The word your English Bible translates as stand here, is the Greek louchnia. It appears 12 times in the New Testament. In everyday, secular Greek, it simply referred to a common, portable lampstand. But in the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Old Testament that the early church relied upon, louchnia, is the specific, dedicated word used to translate the Hebrew menorah. When a first-century Jewish audience hears the word louchnia, they do not immediately picture a cheap wooden post from the local market. They picture the 75 pounds of solid gold burning with beaten olive oil, locked away in a temple room where they will never be permitted to stand. If realizing how much history is hiding beneath the surface of the English text is stirring up questions you have never considered, it is a blueprint, an architectural schematic for a tent where the creator of the cosmos could dwell in the dirt with his people. You are exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week, we go deeper into the ancient context than you knew was possible. So Jesus takes this massive, sacred architectural image and hands it to the peasants. You see this exact linguistic anchor used later in Hebrews 9:2, when the writer explicitly states, "For a tent was prepared," the first section, in which were the louchnia and the table and the bread of the presence. The New Testament writers know exactly what this word means. It is the sacred watcher. It is the burning almond tree. That linguistic connection changes everything about the Sermon on the Mount. When Jesus tells this battered, marginalized crowd that the light belongs on a louchnia, he is entirely decentralizing the presence of God. He is taking the exclusive, the hidden flame of the temple, and declaring that it now belongs in the open air, carried by the people the religious elite had completely cast aside. The louchnia is not a piece of golden furniture hidden behind a heavy curtain. It is the living, breathing community of God, stationed in the darkest corners of the Roman Empire. But this is not the first time the golden tree escaped the confines of the tabernacle. And to understand how this decentralized light actually survives the crushing pressure of human history, and the centerpiece of that tent, the only object that would keep the holy place from being absolutely dark, was this golden tree, the menorah. You have to look at a bizarre vision a prophet received 500 years earlier. While standing in the rubble of a broken city, Jerusalem is a graveyard of shattered limestone. The year is 520 BC. The Babylonians have burned the temple to the ground. The heavy woven curtains are gone. The smell of cold ash is still in the air. The original 75 pounds of solid gold have been dragged away as plunder. A prophet named Zechariah stands in the ruins. He is exhausted. The people have returned from exile to rebuild. But the work is impossibly heavy. The stones are too massive. The surrounding nations are hostile, threatening violence and writing letters to the Persian king to halt the construction. The geopolitical pressure is suffocating. And in the middle of this dark, ruined city, an angel wakes Zechariah from a deep sleep and asks him what he sees. Zechariah looks into the dark. He sees a flash of gold. He sees the menorah. But this watcher is different. Look closely at the strange architecture in Zechariah chapter 4. The golden tree is there. The 7 lamps are blazing. But there is no human priest in the room. There is no Aaron walking in with a bronze wick trimmer. There is no heavy clay jar of beaten oil. Instead, 2 living olive trees flank the gold, one on the right, one on the left. Branches reach out. Most people assume the lampstand is just an ancient light fixture, a practical piece of temple furniture designed so the priests. Golden pipes connect the living, unharvested fruit directly to the burning bowl on top of the lampstand. The oil flows continuously. The golden fluid never stops pouring. No human hands. No daily crushing. No fading wicks. God is removing the human bottleneck. In the wilderness tabernacle, the light depended on the people bringing their bruised olives. If Aaron failed his daily mandate, the flame choked on its own soot. But here in the rubble of a broken world, God is making a new promise to a shattered people. The angel explains the vision with a phrase that echoes through history, "Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord." The oil is not a human commodity. It is an unceasing, divine supply. The watcher will remain awake even when humanity is entirely exhausted. The light will burn even when the political systems collapse, even when the builders have no strength left to lift the stones. The living trees will feed the fire directly. God Himself will ensure the lamp stays lit in the absolute dark. This vision of an infinite, self-sustaining flame gave a broken nation exactly what it needed to survive. But Jesus did not just leave the golden tree standing in a prophetic vision. He took the branches,